Okay. We do have great registration numbers, so that's exciting to have that option for us as well. So,
Okay, it says we are being live streamed.
okay. We do have great registration numbers. So I hear myself.
Yes, I have to mute it.
Okay.
It's a dance on my end.
So yeah, and the chat box is there for you to use, but really I would love to hear your voices. So tell us who you are and where you're joining us and from, and or what your interest in today's topic might be. So I would love to know that I'm not alone here chatting. So
I'll always talk with you, Lori.
I know you will. So.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure hoping this speaker's good. That's all I have.
Oh.
I know we tested her out at 12:30. I'm a little concerned, but you know.
Rightfully so.
Oh my.
That is our speaker, if you aren't aware, who just made that comment. So no, she will be excellent. I have no doubt. So I know we tested her out at 12. Okay, I just heard myself again.
Yep, because I have, okay, so just so you know, Lori, it's a dance on my end because it live streams and it has to be up on my computer. And then, but I can't watch that because I'm watching all of this. And so I have to keep it on my phone as well.
A couple of years ago, Sharon and I were giving a presentation in Lincoln and we experienced technical difficulties. And all of a sudden I hear my voice in the room. And somehow one of our old webinars got into the system and was being played, and I'm like, who is that? And yeah, so but welcome to everybody who has joined us so far. We have a good number of people registered and we still have time to join them in the room with us, so we'll let them keep joining. But tell us where you're joining us from today, who you are, what's your interest in today's topic. Open up your microphone and or use your chat box. If you're wondering about that adorable little kid on your screen, I'll tell you that story here shortly. I like to tease sometimes. So Megan is the Economic Development Director from Wakefield Progressive and is our speaker for today. So Megan, welcome again to you. I have new appreciation for what our speakers do. So Bev Hansen with the Bertrand Area Community Fund of Bertrand, which is just up the road from Holdridge. So welcome, Beverly. I know Val is joining us from the Panhandle. Thanks for joining us. And we continue to have people joining us. So welcome to all of you. And let us know where you're joining us from. This has been a Zoom day for us. So Chris is from Laurel. She's the Economic Development Coordinator. Do you know our speaker today by chance, Chris?
Yes, I do. And I can't wait to hear her speak.
Good, good.
She told us that she'd been talking to you about it.
Yeah. Patty is from Burke County Economic Development. It's been a while since I've been to Northeast Nebraska. Someday I may have to make that trip. Todd has joined us, and I believe he's from the Columbus area. So welcome to Todd. And I see more and more are joining us. So thank you for taking time out of your day. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes. Angie's from Fremont, the city of Fremont to be exact. So welcome. Shelley is with the North Platte Lincoln County Community Development Corporation. Welcome. We have great representation from across the state today. So I'm excited for that. The HomeNE Learning Network is really intended to be statewide, and I'm thankful that all of you are joining us. So
I see we have Jessica Kroger. I happen to know that she is a new employee for USDA Rural Development. That's exciting.
welcome. I am missing some of my chat. So Sherry, if you would please monitor
Okay.
this for me. I'm missing a few for some reason. So, yeah. So we'll just give a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. So. I might go ahead and share why you're looking at an adorable little kid there on the screen. Sometimes when you're the facilitator of these events, you can take a little bit of. And today is Mr. Sam's 4th birthday. That is my grandson with his dad, Matt, and that is my son-in-law. And Sam is the exclamation mark to our family. He completes us and he brings just an abundance of joy. So today I am wishing Samster, that's his nickname for me, a very happy 4th birthday. So if you're in the Omaha, Gretna area, you might know these faces. If so, just reach out and say happy birthday to Sam, or make my son-in-law Matt wonder how you knew it was Sam's birthday today. But he is adorable and we love him very much. And he is a soccer kid right now. So that is the reason why you're seeing an adorable little blonde curly headed boy. Happy birthday to Samster. So welcome to HomeNE. I think we will go ahead and get started and honor all of your time today. And I just want to remind you that we are recording this on Zoom, YouTube. So if you do have technical difficulties, please feel free to log on to our YouTube channel and view from there. So welcome again and good afternoon. My name is Lori Ferguson and I'm with South Central Economic Development District located in Holdridge. We serve a 13-county region and we are one of 8 economic development districts in the state of Nebraska. Thank you for joining us today. Our HomeNE webinar series continues to expand across the state, and many of you have been faithful in making this network meaningful and growth oriented. We've put on this slide kind of just a history of where we are as a learning network, and it's our hope and our goal that this organization and this learning network has reaped dividends for you as a result of your participation and the opportunities that have been provided through HomeNE. I believe we have some new people joining us today. And so if you have just joined us or recently joined us, thanks for checking out the HomeNE Learning Network. And those of you who regularly participate, as you can see there, in the past, we've had as many as 17 people using, I believe, 25 webinars or more. They've been faithful in participating. So whether this is your first HomeNE webinar or one of many, we welcome you here today. So today we have the pleasure of hearing from Megan Weaver. She is the Economic Development Director in Wakefield, Nebraska. And she will be joining and talking to us about the topic of the rural housing roller coaster. And if you say that fast 3 times, I can guarantee you will make a mistake. But who hasn't been on a roller coaster when it comes to housing opportunities and housing challenges within your community? So we are excited to have Megan joining us today. Look forward to hearing from her. So before we formally introduce Megan to you, as you listen to her, I encourage you to be thinking of questions for her. She's wanting some interaction, and we will be sure to pass your questions along to her. Feel free to use the chat box to post your questions, or even go ahead and write those down. And then at the conclusion of her presentation, we will ask you to open your microphones and ask those questions of her. So before we begin today, we've put on the screen a couple questions for you. We want to know from you what interests you about today's topic, and what do you hope to know more about at the end of today's webinar. So go ahead and put those answers in your chat box, and we'll be reading those as well. So HomeNE is a learning network, as I mentioned before, and we learn best when we interact and engage with each other. So we welcome and encourage you to share those thoughts with us. So at this time, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Sharon Heffley. She is the Executive Director here at South Central Economic Development District.
Hey, good afternoon. Good to see all of you. It is such a gorgeous fall day here in Nebraska. It is just a great day to be a Nebraskan, isn't it? That's what HomeNE is all about, housing in Nebraska. So welcome to this October edition of the HomeNE 2021 webinar series. As you know, our development district serves as the lead agent for this learning network, and we are glad you're here. HomeNE is designed for people from all across Nebraska that are seeking to successfully assess and address our local housing challenges. Our purpose is to provide a setting that provides face-to-face online opportunities to foster interaction, engagements, and skill building for locals who are passionate about addressing the housing shortage in their communities, and to empower and encourage those who participate to apply what they learn through the different avenues available to them. Today, we are joined by Megan Weaver. I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes to the call. Megan is the Economic Development Director of Wakefield Progressive in Wakefield, Nebraska. Her housing quest started 9 years ago when she and her family were relocating from Southwest Iowa to Northeast Nebraska. It was then that she witnessed firsthand the housing shortages in and around Wakefield. It wasn't long after that she became the Executive Director for Northeast Housing Initiative in Allen, where she was able to actively help first-time home buyers through their purchase rehab resale program. Of course, we have sirens going off in the background. My apologies. During that time, she also took on the role of Executive Director for Wayne Community Housing Development Corp. It was there that she was able to create the Rural Workforce Housing Fund for the communities of Wayne and Wakefield, thanks to the Department of Economic Development and the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority matching grant and many local contributions. Although she resigned from both positions in mid-2019, how's that? 1929, Megan, you're looking mighty young today for that. Megan has continued to be an advocate for housing in her community. Most recently, her organization was awarded $1 million of Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust funds that will help with the conversion of an upper story Main Street building and new construction of a 90-unit multifamily complex. That's awesome. That's quite an accomplishment. Megan and her husband Brady have 4 children. Rylan is a freshman at Midland University. Jocelyn, 17, Alexia, 14, and Alyssa, 10. She doesn't have a lot of free time between work and family, but she does enjoy cooking, cleaning, and laundry. And I'm going to recruit her to come to my house because I don't really enjoy those things. Megan, welcome to the HomeNE Network.
Thanks, Sharon. I appreciate that. There might have been a little tongue in cheek in that last part, but it does feel like as a working parent, sometimes that's all you get to do in your free time. So Lori and Sherry, thank you for spending time with me this morning to help get me going for today. So we're going to jump right into the ups and downs of creating rural workforce housing. And I want to preface this as the city of Wakefield has been extremely progressive, but even when you have a progressive community, there's still going to be some obstacles you encounter when you're trying to do housing. So we're going to start off a little bit with okay, Sherry. Maybe I should give you control. Oh, now I can control. No. Okay. Did you do that or did I do that? We did practice this, I promise, this morning. So
try using your arrow keys instead of the mouse.
Okay, I
Okay.
will. So we're going to talk a little bit about how it began, not only for the city of Wakefield and their quest to address housing, but also for me as a housing advocate. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the plans that the city put in place to, like I said, address some of the issues that were identified in our housing studies. and then the hurdles, the obstacles that we encountered along the way. And then, of course, we have to share some of our successes. So like Sharon said in the introduction, my journey with housing began in 2012 when we were first moving to Nebraska. It was my husband Brady and I and our 4 kids, and they were pretty little at that time. Sherry, I am not having any luck, so I'll let you advance the slides. How's that? Okay. So when we were first looking in Nebraska, we had been property owners for the 13 years we had been married. We'd actually owned 4 different properties, 3 which were our primary residence, 1 that had an income producing unit in it, and then another rental unit that we had owned. So we were not strangers to being property owners or going through the process. But that was in Iowa. And while we have a lot of alike resemblances with Iowa, we have there's a lot of things the same. It was a different story when we came to Nebraska. What we found was that there were a lot of older homes without updates. And I don't mean granite countertops or fancy master bathrooms. I'm talking the basics, no HVAC. And I am not picky. I'm a pretty low maintenance girl, but I really do like my central air conditioning. So the electrical wouldn't be updated, the plumbing, the roofs were horrendous. We were just kind of shocked at kind of the state of some of the homes. Then we ran into issues with the sales price versus the appraised value. And I think that a lot of housing agencies can attest to this as being an issue. Maybe not so much in our current environment, but in 2012, it was a big problem. We had made an offer on a house that was $169,000 asking price, and it appraised for $125,000. So you can imagine it took about 5 seconds for our banker to scratch that one off the list. I think that financing is an issue for a lot of our rural communities, and it is so important for us to find good lending partners that understand the dynamics of our community and the needs of the different demographics that we serve. We also found that there was a lack of square footage, finished square footage, I should add. We would find these really cute ranch houses, but they were 2-bedroom, 1 bath with an unfinished basement. Well, for 2 people working full-time with 4 kids, there was not enough time. Plus I had to do the laundry. There was not enough time, and there weren't enough resources for us to be able to take on a major rehab project like that and possibly even have to do an addition. We were hours away from sending our moving truck to Nebraska when I called our lender to see how things were going on her end. We were supposed to close on a property the next day. And she said, "Oh, I was just about to call you." The PMI insurance company, they're not going to do this loan. They said you're too rural. Again, mind blown. I have no idea what that meant. She said, "You don't have a fire hydrant within so many feet of your home." And I'm like, okay, well, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. The moving truck is sitting out front and headed to Nebraska, and we have no place to go. So I called our real estate agent, and she was able to convince one of the sellers of a home we had looked at to allow us to rent it until they either sold their property or we were able to find something. I don't think either party anticipated that process taking 7 months on either end, but it did. We also, during that 7 months time, looked for something more permanent as far as a rental option. And the single family houses were in terrible condition. There was no way I was going to let my 1.5-year-old daughter, toddle across some of those floors and take a bath in some of those baths. But so we looked at apartments. We're not above that. We can make that work. And we called all over the place, and they were either full college students or they were income restricted. And with, again, 2 full-time incomes, we just didn't meet those requirements. So when I first started at NEHI, all of this, like I said, propelled me into the housing world. It was like, well, I got to do something. If I'm having a hard time with good credit, steady income, 2 incomes, how is everybody else handling this? What are they doing about these issues? And I was lucky enough to get hired on at NEHI and Allen as the executive director. Next slide, please. Right as I started, I got involved with the city of Wakefield and their development of their housing study. And through that process, I was quite honestly a little reassured that it wasn't just me being crazy or, feeling like, oh gosh, our hometown was so much better than this town or anything like that, that I finally had some numbers and some data to really show that we had a problem here. So in 2012, we had 569 housing units. They say there was 198 rentals. I'm not sure where they were, but that's what they said. So, but almost 50%, 47.4% were in a state of minor or major deterioration. So to me, that was a little bit of a scary number, that almost half of our houses were in pretty bad shape. The median home value was almost $76,000. Again, we weren't finding that when we first moved to town. That price has since risen. In our 2021 housing study, I think we were at 98,000, which I'm sure doesn't surprise a lot of you. The housing study also showed that our multifamily apartment units had very low occupancy rates because they were only available to income qualified households. And that at the time, again, was not necessarily reflective of what our community was. We had 32 vacant housing units. In a town of 1,400, that's a lot of houses sitting empty when you have people looking to move to your community and be a part of that place. So next slide, Sherry. So the city of Wakefield gathered a housing task force, and again, I was lucky to be a part of that. And they put together a plan of action, and it was fairly simple. Some of this they had already started previous, but this helped give them the momentum that they needed to keep moving forward. The first thing was, let's get rid of some of the vacant, dilapidated properties. Let's get them demoed and then be able to sell those lots off to somebody that is going to build a new house, a duplex, a contractor, a developer at a reasonable rate. We wanted to attract new contractors and developers to Wakefield. You can't imagine how many times we heard in meetings that the city should not be responsible for development, that the city can't do this. We have to find somebody from the outside. But there wasn't anybody on a white horse coming to our rescue, I can tell you that. We also knew we wanted to continue to look for other funding sources and write grants. And at the time, our main focus was for single family new construction. We also knew that we needed to have some more land for future development. We had some lots available for building, but they were starting to fill up, and we knew we needed to be prepared for the future. Next slide, please. So as we started to work through the plan, we started implementing the process of purchasing and demoing dilapidated properties, and that worked. You know, I mean, they tell you it's going to work, but you just never really know if it's going to work, and it did. 4 of the properties that we demolished ended up with 2 sets of duplexes, a set of townhomes, and a single family home. So that is a pretty good return on the investment. We also have seen an increase in annual property taxes of almost $13,000 a year. The valuation increase blows my mind, to be honest, from the $35,000 that these properties were each valued at to now we've increased that valuation by $722,000. So we did that for about 4 years, and then it stopped. And you're probably wondering, well, if it worked, why would you stop? And that is partially due to some changes in city leadership and you know, just different strategies that they wanted to take. But we have since started doing that again, and we now have some commercial lots available. We have some more infill residential lots that we're able to sell at a discounted rate. We have one of the properties that we're looking at a triplex on for more of your senior living, which is awesome. That's going to be a great return on our investment. So go ahead, Sherry. So while that strategy worked and continues to work, other strategies did not. We did write a grant with the help of HomeNE, our development district, for the construction of 2 single-family homes. We, on every party, myself, the city, HomeNE, just killed ourselves trying to recruit applicants and find somebody to take advantage of these funds. What we found out was that we were having a hard time finding people to meet the income requirements at 100% AMI. And we also were having troubles, if they did qualify, making that debt to equity ratio work for the lenders, even with the amount of subsidy we were going to provide. In our strategic planning, we talked about attracting developers or contractors to come in and do these big projects for us. We had a development firm come in that wanted to do a senior living project. We worked through a lot of process, not necessarily me, but the city. And we got to a point where the only thing we were looking for was a spot to build. And we had no land available to do that. We had another developer come and he wanted to do a trailer park. Again, we had no place in town to be able to do that. We also found that you have to be able to dangle a carrot. You have to have some type of advantage over the town next door or 3 towns over. You have to be able to offer them something in a financial manner that is going to incentivize them to build in your community. We also, and this is something that quite honestly took me, I'm embarrassed to say, several years to catch on to, that not everyone wants to be a homeowner or can be a homeowner. We have a lot of our workforce that they simply need a place to live so that they can work and live in the same community, or else they're going to have to go find something else. I was sharing with another colleague this morning, Wakefield has 960 people coming into our community every day for work. We're a town of almost 1,600. So that's a lot of people coming in every day, but they're going home someplace else. So we have to design some housing that isn't just pigeonholed into single family. Go ahead, Sherry. So when the Workforce Housing Fund application came out, and of course I was probably like a lot of other housing people, we were watching and waiting for this to come about. It felt like the answer to our prayers. I was working for Wayne Community Housing, and we were able to partner with the City of Wakefield and the City of Wayne to file a joint application. For the City of Wakefield, we were able to raise $440,000 of local funds from our employers in the City of Wakefield, and then pairing that with the Knife and Matching grant and the funds from DED, we started with a fund balance of $962,000. We had our release of funds in mid 2018, and our first project was completed. They were actually in celebrating Christmas of 2018, although we didn't do our official ribbon cutting with the governor until 2019. And that program has been amazing. Since then, we've done $1.8 million in investment in housing through that program. And we have a line of people looking to use the funds as they come back in. So if you get the opportunity to apply for those funds, I would highly recommend it. But through this process, again, like I said, I'm still a little tunnel visioned at single family home and helping promote home ownership and housing preservation. And so we've used a ton of these funds on single family construction and substantial rehab. But we have not been able to use these funds on any multifamily development. But what these funds did for us and the media coverage around these funds helped to get the word out to developers across Nebraska that we were here to get something done. We wanted them to come to Wakefield and present projects. So finally, the light bulb comes on, and we realize that we have to start looking at some multifamily rental options. So our first official developer came from Omaha, and he was a cousin of the contractor that built our first workforce housing home. And so that was a great connection to have. Slide, Sherry, please. So this is what we came up with. It was a mixed use project with commercial bays on the bottom and then 30 units on the second and third floors. These were going to be affordable units. We were going to apply for some trust funds to help subsidize the project. Very excited to see something like this in our little town. I had the vision. I was like, wow, this isn't what you see in small towns. This is what you see a lot in Omaha and Lincoln. So if we can create this cool vibe, we're going to continue to attract new businesses and new people to the community. But the problem that we had was the area that we wanted to build this property on was in a area zone for light industrial. But the issue we had was there was no other land in the community to build on. Next slide, please. So it's a little difficult because I don't have my cursor. You're kind of on the right side there, you'll see a T building. And to the left of that, there's 2 lots. That is where we proposed this building site. It was close to the Dollar General. It was close to our medical clinic, our salon, The school you can see is very close, only 2 to 3 blocks away. Main Street was again 2 to 3 blocks away. It really seemed to be a good fit. And to be honest, we were not having, and we won't have, any industry knocking on our doors begging to come to town because we have no place for their employees to live. And so we took this to the city council, this project, and asked them if they would consider something like this in this area. And I got scolded, told that you should go to planning and zoning first. So that's what we did. Next slide, please. So we took it to planning and zoning, and the first meeting was pretty okay. But then as the public input started coming in, we packed the room for planning and zoning, which I don't know about you guys, but we usually don't have anybody that's excited about planning and zoning. We had a lot of support from the public for this project, but we didn't have the support of our elected officials. Some of their issues that they brought up was, where will the children play? Quite honestly, I get that. Not a deal breaker though. We've got green space. We can work that into the project. Nothing is set in stone. I had somebody say, well, gosh, I waited for 5 cars at the intersection. What happens if we add 30 more units to this side of the highway? We don't have a ladder truck, and this building's 3 stories. Never mind that we have industry that's probably 12 stories tall. So who's going to want to live there and look at the back of Dollar General? How are people going to cross the street, across the highway? How are the kids going to get to school? Who's going to fill the commercial spots? Which, by the way, we did have a need, and we still have a need for commercial buildings. The developers from out of town. What? You've been telling us that we're supposed to find somebody to come help us. And he wants TIF. We're going to give our TIF dollars to somebody that doesn't live in our community. So then they asked why I would suggest a project like this in an area that wasn't already zoned for residential. And that was tough because there weren't any other locations throughout the community that would work for a large project. So that was developer number 1. And remind you that this was in 2019. And we lost it. He walked away. They did not recommend the zoning change. So he walked away. Then we come with developer number 2. And developer number 2 brings a completely different project to the table. Go ahead, Sherry. Project number 2 is a much smaller project, more of a kind of vanilla project. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to it. Go ahead, next slide. So the pros and kind of the things that check the boxes, I felt like for the city council in planning and zoning, were that the building was only 2 stories. So we didn't have to worry about not having the ladder truck. It was going to be a smaller project with only 8 units versus the 30. So we don't have to worry about traffic congestion. It was going to be more affordable-ish. We actually found, as we were working through the process, that it was maybe going to be $100 less a month, but there were far less amenities. They were going to not have washer and dryers. The stairs weren't enclosed, things like that. So it was a local developer, and there was no commercial space for the elected officials to worry about the developer filling. So I guess that was a pro. But then as we started working through the project, we got more questions. Go ahead, next slide. So if you can't tell by the picture, it's not me, but it is kind of a reflection of how I was feeling at this point in the process. We were able to get this developer identified a lot in the industrial tract. The same area, different lot as the previous developer. It's like, crap, now we got to go back to P&Z and go through all of this again. But this time we were able to get P&Z to agree to rezone the one lot to C2 so that we could have multifamily housing. So we went ahead and moved the zoning request change to the city council and proposed this project to them. What we found through that process is that there weren't going to be enough eligible expenses for TIF. Everything we thought was going well, but then when we did the TIF application, it wasn't going to be enough for the developer. So we had to go back to the drawing board. We then developed our workforce housing incentive plan that can be used with TIF. And that allows some of the other construction costs, some of the vertical construction costs to be eligible. So you're able to maximize that amount. But again, at the council meeting, we were still asked the same questions. You know, where are the children going to play? The developer was not interested in adding any extras to the property. He thought it took more maintenance time, more cost. He just wasn't interested in that. We had been told prior that the building prior was too fancy, too upscale. And now they were questioning whether this was the caliber of construction that we wanted. They didn't like that the stairs weren't enclosed in the project. They were in a breezeway, an open breezeway, and not enclosed like they have seen in other communities and other projects. They thought it was plain Jane, and they didn't like that there wasn't any landscaping. And I'm right there with them. I didn't like that part either. And again, the developer was not interested in adding those extra costs to the project. And so there went developer number 2. In the meantime, while working with developer number 2, developer number 3 comes knocking on the door. Go ahead, Sherry, please. So I can tell you the only reason developer number 3 came to Wakefield was because of the Rural Workforce Housing Fund and TIF. So that is how they found out about our community. They came and visited and met with myself, the city administrator, and a member of the CRA. We tried everything to steer them away from that industrial tract where we thought we were already going to have another project and we weren't going to push our luck to try to get any more zoning done. So we showed them every single property that the elected officials had asked us to, and that had been proposed to us. He said, nope, I want these 2 lots out in the industrial tract, which were not the 2 lots that had been rezoned or the previous 2 lots that the other developer had wanted. So out of 6 lots, we've now had interest in all of them for housing. We made sure that he knew from the very beginning that he needed to have a place for the children to play. We made sure that it was gonna be something that the council and planning and zoning could not say no to. They were even including garages, which was something that nobody else had requested, but we thought that is a benefit to somebody looking to rent into our workforce to be able to have some storage. Next slide, please. So after a year and a half, because of things with COVID, and I think there were a lot of concerns all across Nebraska and the United States about whether or not employment numbers were going to stay high. we finally were landed the third developer. And he is coming in, and you can go to the next slide here. He is going to build 90 units very similar to this. This is another project of his that will have 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, balconies, enclosed stairways, security, washer and dryer, walk-in closets, garages, pretty much anything you can imagine that a renter would want. These apartments finally satisfied everybody. It satisfied the Planning and Zoning Commission, it satisfied the elected officials, and it exceeded all of our expectations of what we could have here in Wakefield. I will say that in order to land something like this project, we worked extremely hard with our local employers. We did multiple surveys of their employees, and they were simple surveys, 4 questions. Would you rent this? How many bedrooms would you need? And what would you pay for something like this? And that really gave the developer the security they knew that they could do a project this large in a community of our size. The housing study was key in that as well. Plus the $500,000 of Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust funds solidified it. We will be using TIF on this project through the use of our Workforce Housing Incentive Plan. So they will be able to maximize the amount of TIF they're gonna receive and really make this a good project. So the other project we have, and I didn't have time to put it into this slide deck, is our downtown project, and it is the upper story of 3 buildings that are all interconnected. It's been vacant for decades, and we had a couple come in and buy the three buildings, and they're going to put 4 apartment units in the upper story in our downtown, which is just gonna. Anytime you can have people living there, they're going to eat downtown. They're going to walk to the events downtown. It really re-energizes the community. So we're very excited about that as well. Go ahead, next slide. So I was getting a little tired when I was putting together this presentation, and I thought I was being funny, but this probably isn't funny unless you're a Saturday Night Live person. I put my deep thoughts presented by Megan Weaver. I don't have the right voice, and I wanted some cheesy song behind it, but again, I couldn't quite figure it out. So some things just to kind of cap everything off is to make sure that whenever you're doing workforce housing, that you're using all the tools available to your community. We've used LB 840 funds to help with some of the infrastructure and some of our new development. We've been able to use it to purchase and demo houses. Our CRA has also had funds that they've been able to do some demo on properties. We also used TIF dollars, CRA dollars to be able to get a downtown business ready by replacing the windows, and they were able to add 2 upper story apartments in a building, again, that hadn't had any activity in it for decades. So out of TIF, the 2 things that really can help with housing are the micro TIF and the workforce housing incentive plan. And if you don't have a micro TIF plan, I would strongly suggest looking into that. It's ideal for smaller housing projects. And I'm hoping if anybody's in Northeast Nebraska next month on the 16th, we're going to be having a speaker come to Wakefield to talk a little bit about micro TIF as well as the workforce housing incentive portion of that. If you have the opportunity to go after workforce housing funds, absolutely do it. And do not be afraid to go and ask your businesses to pitch in. A lot of them are willing to do it because they're desperate for people, and they can't retain their employees or their workforce if they're driving 45 minutes to an hour every day for work. There's way too many opportunities out there that they don't have to do that at this point. And again, the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund is also a great resource for communities with the higher income levels at 120% of area median income. It really does make it a good option for our workforce. Go ahead, Sherry. I would suggest, again, working closely with your local employers, large and small. It's not just our big ones that have hundreds of employees that are suffering. It's also our smaller employers, our nursing homes, our schools, the grocery store, convenience stores that are struggling. And they're usually more than happy to help out by surveying their employees and providing that feedback. And don't be afraid to ask them to come to your meetings to speak in favor of the project. I have had the president of Michael Foods, a $1 billion a year company, come and speak at our council meetings just to impress upon our elected officials the desperate need for housing and the fact that they're not going to be able to continue growing in this location if they aren't able to grow their workforce. So bring in the big guns. They, even though you think they may not have time to help, this is a priority to many CEOs and vice presidents, presidents of companies. So make sure to reach out to them and ask. Next slide. And I said, I put this in again, I was getting tired. The most cliche saying of the afternoon, just don't give up. Do not give up on advocating for your communities and getting housing built. It can start with one single family house, and then the momentum can grow and somebody else sees that that's working. So then you've got two going. And then again, you start to see somebody want to do a duplex, a triplex. Just do not give up on that desire to help your community through housing. So that is all I have today.
Okay, thank you, Megan. We've got your contact information there on the screen. So we are very appreciative of your time and your presentation. And I'm going to open it up for a time of conversation with you to our attendees and give them the opportunity to ask some questions. We had one early on. Someone asked, were the demolished properties abandoned, or how did that come about?
Yep. Not all of them were abandoned. There were a few properties that had, I would say, absentee owners that we had to track down to get. Our city administrators actually on this webinar. He would have more input, but thankfully he doesn't have a microphone, I don't think. So, but most of them were just vacant. They were maybe formerly rental units or something that, somebody transitioned from that home into a better home and just kind of left sitting, used for storage. We have a lot of homes that are just full of stuff. They're not going to be lived in. They don't have utilities on, and those are the properties that we've kind of gone after. Is and we just started making phone calls. If you saw a house that you thought might be beneficial, one of the properties that we currently own, the CRA, is adjacent to a commercial lot that we own. So that we wanted to get rid of that property, so then we had more commercial opportunities, and hopefully we'll see that come to fruition here in the future.
Okay, great. James says that you might want to share with all of us how the CRA got jump started. MFI expansion. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, yes. So the CRA we had a CRA for a very long time, but it went dormant. In 2015, Michael Foods, which is our largest employer here with 850 employees, they did, and Jim can correct me, but I believe it was a $21 million expansion. They chose not to TIF that project. So we, as a CRA, decided to capture their TIF. So we were able to create people hate this term, but a bucket TIF. So each year we receive about $250,000 that we can use for facade improvements, infrastructure, in our redevelopment areas. So that is really what jump-started our CRA. And again, we wouldn't have some of the opportunities we have today without having that incentive to give to people. So.
Okay, super. What questions are coming to mind for Megan? I have a couple, but I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions, and feel free to open your microphone if you'd like to. While that's happening, could you give us just an elevator speech about micro-TIF? For somebody who's not familiar with that terminology, what is it, and what are the possibilities of micro-TIF?
Yep. So it's new to us too. So I hope that I'm going to explain this correctly, but it is for your smaller projects. We've only done one, and it is an expedited process. You work with the county assessor, a developer, it can even be a homeowner, a property owner, that they're able to go through the TIF process and capture that increment for 10 years versus 15. They don't have the legal fees that you see with larger TIF projects, because again, they're working directly with the county assessor to determine the value and what that increment's going to be. We hope to do more of that. We have another project that we're looking into, but like I said, so far we've just done one. The city council, once they approve micro TIF, they pretty much just rubber stamp the project at the council meeting. It gets presented to them and they say, yep, okay, great, can't wait to see the progress. So because it's already been, the whole micro TIF plan has already been approved.
Okay, thank you. What's the timeline for the 90 unit property? Is it under construction? What's the timeline, and how will you market it to possible tenants?
So we're waiting for a release of funds. We still have, to go through jump through some of those hoops with the Department of Economic Development, but we're hoping their plan is as soon as the frost is out of the ground to start construction. They would like to have the first 30 units built by November, and then all 90 units done by November 2023. So we have already began marketing these apartments to the workforce, and really helping promote this product so that as soon as they start construction, they're going to be able to start screening applicants. It'll hopefully go up quick as long as the weather cooperates. But yeah, in less than 2 years, we should have 90 units up and running. So,
okay.
And we're excited. They're also going to start their own management company. So we will have local management on site. So that will be advantageous to our demographic, that they have a familiar face to work with.
Okay. Brian wants to know what the approximate rental rates will be on those.
Well, I don't want anybody to pass out or gasp or anything. A 3-bedroom will be about $1,200. A 2-bedroom will be probably $1,050, and a 1-bedroom right around $895 probably. And again, I know those numbers seem high, but we have starting wages right now in our manufacturing plants of $20+ an hour. And we have a lot of dual income households. So that is what the workforce told us that they could afford. And with the increase in construction costs, that's what we're going at. We've also seen, because of the shortage of rentals in the community, we've seen complete families having to rent one bedroom, not even an apartment. I'm talking one bedroom for $650. So that's a shared bathroom, that's a shared kitchen. So we're like I said, we're kind of desperate right now to get some decent housing out there to stop some of our overcrowding.
Okay. A question of clarification. Are they doing multiple buildings, or how are the 90 units happening?
Yep. So there's actually 3 buildings with 30 units each in them. So that's what allows them to kind of phase the project, where they're going to start with 30. Before that 30 is finished, they'll start the next 30 and so on.
Okay, great. I don't know if you can see the chat box, but Brian's confirming that your rental rates are kind of in the ballpark of what they have in his community in a building built just a couple of years ago. So, yeah.
And Brian, you're in Schuyler?
I believe.
Okay, yep.
Mhm.
And he would have a similar demographic to Wakefield. And so he's probably seen a lot of the same overcrowding issues as we have. So.
Okay. So as we get a little closer, we will go over a little bit here if anybody has a question for Megan. But as you're thinking about that, maybe somebody could share what is one thing you're taking away from today's presentation by Megan. Do you have an aha, something that you want to apply maybe in your community? We would love to hear from you. Once again, open your microphone or add that to the chat box. So
I have somebody private messaged me, Lori, and they are gathering information to share with their community fund to address the local housing shortage in their community. So,
okay, great.
Yep.
That's the purpose of what we do here with HomeNE, is to connect individuals with resources that are being applied in other communities. So,
and Lori, I would say too that if anybody wants to brainstorm or just kind of ask some more questions offline there, please reach out to me, via email, over the phone, whatever works. I'm always willing, because sometimes those conversations can lead to ideas for our community as well.
Sure, definitely. Well, and so Sherry, would you mind, or Megan, would you mind just once again typing your contact information in the chat box? The slide will be available to all the attendees, but maybe somebody wants to reach out to you before the slides are available. If we could get your contact information in the chat box, that would be awesome. So perfect, thank you. So as we begin to wrap up today, and as you're pondering Megan's presentation, I do want to mention to you that all webinars, both today's webinar and past webinars, can be found on our HomeNE link on the SCED website. A lot of great information there. Sherry was telling me just the other day that one of our recent, probably within the last year, webinars has been viewed 95 times. And so that was good to know that you are tapping into that resource. So, and then just to remind you that our next HomeNE gathering is coming up in 2 weeks from today. So there's a compilation of some pictures from past gatherings. We were sharing with Megan today. It's unique. It's not traditional in the fact that we have speakers just talking to you in rows all day long. We make it very interactive and informative, and we take a tour of the community. So our next gathering is 2 weeks from today, as I did mention. We are going to York, and we will be there for a one-day event. Lisa Hurley is probably not on the webinar. I didn't see her name, but she has been instrumental in pulling this together for us. So we are really eager to go to York in 2 weeks. Registration until Monday is only $99, and that does include your lunch. So if you don't register before Monday, after Monday, that price does increase to $139, and then we have to close registration at the end of the day on Thursday. So Derek is already looking forward to seeing us all. So Derek, we are looking forward to having you as our host community. So if you are in the central region of the Nebraska Development Network, there are scholarships available. So reach out to Kelly Jawicki or myself if you'd like to take advantage of those scholarships that are available to you. So Megan, once again, I just want to say a very heartfelt thank you to you for your time and for the information that you shared with us today. It's very much appreciated. So. And as we wrap up, I just want to remind you, our next webinar is November 18th, and that will be our final webinar for 2021. We do take the month of December off, and we do not host a webinar in December. So we are in process of confirming that. We have our speakers, but we just don't really have a title from them just yet. So I don't want to share, but we will be announcing that to you very shortly. So are there any last questions or comments anybody would like to share with us or add to our conversation before we end? Well, if not, once again, thank you, Megan, and to all of you, have a great rest of your day.